So today we are looking at some advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and we're looking at another rarely asked question, which today is going to be revolving around character languages. So we'll be discussing a little bit about the languages. What I won't be going into are alignment languages. Don't get me started on alignment languages. But we won't be getting into alignment languages right now. We'll just be sticking to character languages. So the first thing we encounter about languages is basically covered under intelligence, where we realize that the intelligence will have an impact on how many languages a character can learn, which obviously makes some sort of sense. You've got to put an arbitrary figure somewhere, and intelligence is the place for that to belong to. It's the reasoning, it's the ability to remember, it's everything else that goes with general problem solving and so on. So yep, intelligence counts as the stat required for the number of languages. Our next discussion on languages comes from the race that we picked. So when we're looking at races and we see that we've got the various different dwarves, elves, half-elves, halflings, gnomes, and so on, they all have the different levels of language and what that means for each character. So dwarves, elves, gnomes, half-elves, halflings, and even half-orcs. So you see that they are limited in the way that they put things together, but still allowed for the intelligence to be a factor in some cases. When they talk about requiring X intelligence for additional languages, that's a direct correlation, but when there's a couple of races where they talk about no more than 2 languages, that's when we refer back to the language chart on the intelligence chart, and as long as it's 2+, then you can learn 2 languages on top of the languages already learned. So there are some languages that are innate to classes, and they are part of the actual class abilities as of first level in order to be able to communicate with members of that class. Druids have a specific language that their communication is based on, and obviously, as we all know, Thieves' Cant is a form of language, while not exactly like the structured language. It's a series of codes and instances, whether you want it to be like the Dresnian secret language or something else. The idea is that it's something that only the thieves are able to work with in order to be able to figure out what each other is saying and have secret conversations. And they're generally related to jobs or the work and business at hand. For those playing at home, we're on page 34 of the Player's Handbook, and we have a whole communication here regarding languages, which goes just a little bit up here. And realistically, aside, if you removed everything that was to do with the alignment language and what to do with Druidic and Thieves' Cant, which it doesn't say that a non-character can't learn, it's just saying that that's what they learn in addition to everything else, then the character will speak the common tongue, which is an amalgam of the local lingo used by the character. And they've said that if you move to another section of the empire, the common tongue may actually be a different language. So not quite eliminating the need for understanding common twice, but it's something that the DM can work on if they wish to have. So the question comes in terms of how do you actually learn a language and what is the language useful for? A suggestion of some languages that are the most common apparently are here. Now, as we can see, we got the races that the players can be, but also Lizard Man. Once upon a time there was a thought that the Lizard Man would be a character race, but they decided against it. It was a bit too monstrous, so they stuck with the ones that we know and love. And ogres, orcs, kobolds and goblins are just villains and common enough that people might know a smattering of orc just because they get attacked by orcs all the time. So basically, here is where what we learn is that, yep, you can even learn a single language, but it takes time. Time is what the main issue is. And we're looking at a language being learned in 12 months. So within 1 year, you can learn a language well enough to be able to communicate at some level in order to be able to be understood and have a basic conversation in comfortable surrounds. Fluent is different, and how well you manage that is entirely up to the DM, but you could say that after 12 months of study or 12 months of learning, you can definitely make do with nearly everything you need to get by on a day-to-day. That 12 months is reduced by 1 month for every score above 12 for your intelligence, meaning that an 18 intelligence character requires 6 months to learn a language. That's still 6 months of being surrounded by that language, and whether it's a matter of continual study or part-time study, in which case it would still be extended, is something different. But the other question that comes back is, when would you be doing this? That 6 months seems like a long time to be not adventuring. Or do you take the sage with you to teach you the language that you need to learn? Or is it more or less, if you're a party of adventurers and you're spending a good quality time in the areas of a fire giant, will you just pick up enough fire giant to be able to say that you're familiar with it? After work, and then if you've got the slots, you can add that. That's one of the questions that can get asked. And basically what we're looking at is, again, time in learning and putting those languages together. So there's another character class out there that just seems to learn languages as they go. And in part, this is a class that is almost like the superhuman class that has skills in everything, and that is the bard. With learning a language, it's not a matter of an additional language, they actually learn an additional language as part of their studies. So by the time you get that one extra language, which you'll see is generally towards the back end of their college days in each college. So every time when they level up, they go back to their college to do their leveling, to learn the next thing, which includes the language, and they have an ability to pick up languages very quick, and they learn more languages. So the 23rd level bard gains an extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 languages to the repertoire, on top of the languages that already come with their reasonably high intelligence and potentially their race as well. But I hear everyone saying, the DM's guide came out a year later, and as we know, the rule of 3, the hierarchy of ruling, monster manual to player's handbook to DM's guide, by this stage, surely the DM's guide has some extra information regarding how about these languages get learned. If only that were the case. Simply put, time needs to be tracked because it's really important for training, studying, and learning new languages, as well as more things that go on. That's kind of it. So it's just time. There's no other mechanic, there's no other setup. Basically, you need access to the language, you need to be surrounded by the language, and you need to be able to have the intelligence slot required to fill that spot. Then you can learn the language, and there's a maximum limit to what you're able to learn, or an overall limit to the capacity of learning. You may learn enough to understand how to swear and how to abuse somebody in a different language, but that's not the same as being able to converse freely with a merchant. So these are the sort of questions that DMs sometimes will get asked. Actually, they rarely get asked because nobody's usually thinking about it. But when your character starts with the languages, if you wish to learn them along the way, not wanting to put specific languages already down on your list, then those open slots, they could get useful down the way, but they do take time. If you're going to be in an area long enough, you might learn the local language, you might learn the local routines, and is learning the language part of learning the culture of that as well? Do you learn some of the traditions of general day-to-day, or is it purely just an actual linguistic skill that's taught? Here's a character we've made previously and brought up in the past, and good old Patricus has a 9 intelligence, giving him 1 additional language. At the moment he has common, and that's it. So for him to learn an extra language is going to take him 12 months of being in an area or surrounded by the language in order to be able to pick that up. And that can still be a character, that can be coming from a character as well. So after 12 months of hanging out with an elf, you could learn elf. You could learn elven or a dwarven, but the maximum number of languages that our fellow here can learn is 1. Additional languages. Curzo, our half-orc fighter, with his 12 intelligence, even though 12 allows us a maximum of 3 additional languages, for a half-orc, the maximum languages extra he can learn is 2. So 2 is all that he can learn. And he can currently can speak Common, Orcish, and Gnome, leaving 1 extra space for his spare slot of language. And finally, our elf magic user that has 0 additional languages, even though she has a nice intelligence, it's not high enough to actually learn any extra languages from her standard language pool. So in essence, simply put, in order to want to learn a language, the character just needs to want to learn a language. And so wanting to learn a language is the prime requisite, having the intelligence to have a slot available to learn that language. And then it's the time for being able to learn it and be taught it. So like I said, and this is one of those instances where yes, you can learn it from your other characters. Not many skills can be taught or shared between characters, and whether or not the druidic or thieves' cant can be considered additional languages taught may be something that only special cases, or maybe something that they can just learn. That's up to the DM. But basically it's a big conversation between the player and the DM about the time and how it's going to happen, whether they have to hire a sage and that sage has to hang around with them for 6 to 12 months, or they hire a tutor for to live in situ, live in their premises, like where they come back to, and every time they come back they spend a few weeks doing studies, that 6-7 months might end up being 8-9 months anyway. So basically, there's a lot that's not written down in order for the DM to be able to fill in those blanks as to how it gets done. But the premise is that it's time, possibly a little bit of gold, and the intelligence slots available. And that's when it comes to learning the languages. So I'd just like to thank everybody for sticking by and watching everything. This is just something that I had a couple of questions on, and I really wanted to put a few words in. I didn't want to cover alignment languages today or talk about how they could possibly be used, but there are ways that you can still use them, just not exactly. You should be a little bit left of field with some of the concepts, but that's a deeper conversation. So what I'd like to do is thank everybody, remind everybody about the Patreon, remind everybody about subscribing and liking and all of that usual stuff that goes with the metrics and etc, etc, etc. But I appreciate all of the support that everyone has, and it's something that is well worthwhile. I hope that there's enough information I'm providing that's good for people. I'm hoping that you're finding it useful. If you'd like to hear about something else or you'd like something extra, drop me some lines. I am listening and I am picking up on what people want to talk about. So I get a handful of questions. I put together some thoughts and work out rules-based questions as well as concept questions. And then we'll try and break things down to separate rules-based questions and what sort of ideas should we be doing for this. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm just happy that people are enjoying it, and I look forward to doing the next one, and we'll keep this up for a little bit. We've got a few more things coming up down the way, but right now I just want to thank folks. I can't stress that enough. Alright, I want everyone to stay safe, and make sure that we're all cool. We've got a good Christmas coming up. We need to make sure that we're all decent humans. Alright, thanks everyone, this is great.